Welcome everybody to the Baltimore Association of Black Journalists, our first November event. Today we are going to talk about no bots, and the idea is how to have a journalistic eye when it comes to verifying not necessarily just sources, but the information that you're looking at before you decide to share it with your audience. So we have two amazing panelists today, and I'm going to do the whole self-introduction thing so I don't leave out anything important about your background. We're going to go ladies first and start with Heaven Taylor-Wynn. Please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about what it is that you do with MediaWise. And, for an icebreaker, your cool t-shirt.
Oh gosh. Hi everyone. Like she said, my name is Heaven Taylor-Wynn. I am a multimedia journalist for MediaWise at the Poynter Institute in St. Petersburg, Florida. I was born and raised in St. Pete. I went to the University of Florida and graduated last year with a bachelor's in telecommunications. Now I am wearing a shirt that has the Seminoles on it. However, it is very comfortable. It is one of the most comfortable items that I own. And not that you. I need you to put that down. Gators.
You know? Okay, so she's a gator for real.
But yes, I'm really a gator, and I've been at MediaWise since shortly after I graduated. And so over there, I lead our social media strategy. Before COVID, I was traveling at least once a month to a different school, middle or high school, teaching students how to tell facts from fiction online. That's kind of our tagline, teaching them to think like journalists and think like fact checkers and verifying information online before they're sharing it. And lately, this year, leading up to the election, we have been producing educational materials, courses, content, teaching people how to verify election-related and COVID-19 related misinformation. So now that the election is done, we're kind of gearing up for 2021, which we don't even know what that holds yet. So I'm really excited to talk with you guys about some of the things that I do every day and share some tips and tricks.
You are doing the Lord's work, by the way, and I appreciate you so much for it because you're trying to get them at an early age. But a lot of what you teach can definitely help us at our, obviously not in middle school age and high school age. Jumping into Jesse Holland, one of our BABJ members, by the way. A little bit about, obviously you, what you're up to right now, and the ethics course that you teach, because that falls more into what we're talking about today.
Well, okay, so I am Jesse J. Holland. I am the host of Washington Journal on C-SPAN on Saturdays. I am also an assistant professor at the School of Media and Public Affairs at George Washington University. And I also teach journalism ethics at New York University, their Washington, D.C. Center, and at the graduate school at Georgetown University. In addition to all of that, I also write books, and I'm also a public speaker, so I do a lot of talking around the country. At least I did before COVID jumped and killed my speaker schedule. One of the things that it's great to talk about this because I used to be an Associated Press reporter. I was with AP for about 30 years. Including 20 years in the Washington, D.C. Bureau. And I pioneered the AP's AP Politics Twitter account. I didn't create it, but I took it and turned it into what it is today. And I started AP's Facebook page in Washington, D.C. and its Instagram page. So for about 5 years, I was in charge of social media content at the Associated Press, and before I became one of the AP race and ethnicity writers, which I was until last October. So it's been just about a year since I've been an active daily reporter, but I still keep my hand in at C-SPAN, and I have some articles that are coming up in several magazines up in the next year or so.
So you guys can now see that we have the best people talking about verification. Here's the thing is that what 2020 has shown us is that sadly anything is possible. A lot of crazy things are possible. And let's talk about information. Lots of it. Fake news, bots, deep fakes, fact checkers is the new job title that a lot of us are taking. Like we just knew we had to do facts already, but these are all things that have become part of our lexicon because it's part of life right now. What have you two noticed when it comes to the almost uptick in deep fakes and bots and the activity online? Well, I'll start with Heaven first.
Sure. So I'll first start off by saying at MediaWise, we try to avoid fake news, like the term fake news like the plague, simply because when you ask 10 different people what is fake news, you might just get 10 different answers. So for example, if you ask President Trump, you might hear that it's a story from the failing New York Times that just paints him in a bad light. Or if you ask your auntie on Facebook, it might be literal pink slime made up journalism. Or if you ask someone else, they might tell you that it is false news. And so fake news kind of, like words have meanings and fake news kind of doesn't. So we like to really stick with misinformation or disinformation. And misinformation, as we know, is information that is false, inaccurate, misleading, or just straight up wrong. Disinformation is what we see when we see organized campaigns to take someone down oftentimes, or to just generally mislead the public, or oftentimes with monetary interests, in fact. And we've seen that in 2016, and there was even disinformation campaigns happening in this year, 2020. So we try to avoid fake news. What I notice is that when you talk to journalists, typically people know what fake news, deep fakes, bots, and what fact checks and fact checking and fact checkers are and what all of that is. But when you talk to people who don't work in the industry, like our family and friends and other folks who we just come across, they don't know what this stuff is. And I think one way that the industry could improve is kind of working to better educate people on what these things are and how to spot these things, how to know with what you're dealing with. Bots, I feel like are like ubiquitous on social media. Even in YouTube comments these days, I'm like, you can't even have an engaging discussion about a topic you're watching on YouTube with people because it's just riddled with bots. And people just don't always know how to spot that. So that's part of the work that I do at MediaWise, is helping people to identify these things and figure this stuff out. And I think I can confidently say that fake news and misinformation as a whole, I think we can confidently say that President Trump has a lot to do with that. Frankly, it's just the truth.
Yeah.
You know, he has made misinformation almost okay, like the norm. So.
And can you jump into the bot activity on our popular, everything from YouTube to even Twitter threads seem to be like, not even threads, just tweets seem to be like so inundated with bots. Can you talk about that type of activity?
Yeah, so there's actually a tool that we like to talk to people about. I believe it's called Botometer. I might be saying that wrong. There's also Hoaxy. And that's a cool way that you can figure out whether or not a topic or something that is being discussed on Twitter is actually a topic of discussion amongst humans, or whether it's a disinformation campaign. And that can be tough. But a couple different ways that I like to identify bots is whether there's a string of numbers at the end of the @ name, if they're following thousands of people and have no followers, or have like 2 tweets, or if the account showed up in the last couple of days and they're tweeting on a constant schedule. You know, those are just a few key ways to figure out if something is a bot. And they're getting better. I'm not going to lie to you. They're getting better at mimicking human behavior. So it's tough because these are machines created by humans who are intelligent, and they're getting even more intelligent. So
we're gonna dive deeper into like bot deep fakes, the things that really just make it so hard to figure out what am I looking at. But I want to jump into and talk to Jesse about like, what have you seen recently when it comes to, I'm going to use your phrase, you said misinformation, disinformation campaigns, and of course, bots and deep fakes.
Well, one of the things that we underestimate is how prevalent not only bots, but just misinformation and disinformation is in the media environment. And I'll tell you an example of what happened to me. I got a call from a student from Georgetown University who wanted to interview me for something they were doing at Georgetown. And I give her my cell phone number and tell her I'm available from 11 to noon on Saturday. And so on Saturday, I sit by my phone and I wait for her to call. And she never calls. So I say, student, maybe she just blew it off and decided she was going to do something else. So the next day, I get a call from the student and says, well, I want to check a quote you gave me. And I said, we never talked. We never talked. She's like, no, you talked to me for 45 minutes. And I was like, no, I didn't. So it turns out that she had dialed the wrong telephone number and somebody had pretended to be me and did
a whole conversation with a stranger?
With a stranger, did a whole interview as me. And I was lucky that she called to check the quote about how the quote was something like strange about how something that I clearly wouldn't have said. What? But someone maliciously had pretended to be me to a reporter, and if she had not have called to check one of the quotes, neither one of us would have ever known that someone was putting disinformation out under my name. For a lot of my conversations over the last 5 years, as I've been teaching about disinformation and misinformation, it's been abstract. Now I see how personal it can be, because you have no control if you're a reporter, especially during coronavirus, when all of our interviews are going to be over computer and over the phone. Now, when it comes to the internet, if you have to do that level of checking when you're doing a conversation, when you're hearing somebody's voice, you have to do 10 times that when you're dealing with information on the internet, whether it's photos, whether it's graphics, whether it's Twitter conversations. I mean, it's so prevalent out there right now that people are not only accidentally spreading disinformation, people are maliciously spreading disinformation, and they're hoping journalists fall for it for whatever reason they want, which is to make the media look bad or to make the subject look bad or whatever reason it is. But you have to be really on your P's and Q's when it comes to information that you did not generate yourself, because you don't know where the information came from, who the person is talking to you, and what their agenda is in putting that information out there.
I remember at AP being reminded over and over and over again about our social media policy, because that was always painful.
Yes,
that you wrote that painful policy, right? The reason I cringed is because I would fish for people to talk to in the middle of the night. You know, I worked overnight, so that's where I'm going to get my interviews, is who's on Twitter, who can talk to me about this. Okay, fine. So I'm going on Twitter. I'm going on Instagram. I'm calling, but I'm doing some old school things. Like I'm also calling the truck stops and the places that people hang out late at night, like the IHOPs and the Waffle Houses and stuff too, right? Mm-hmm. So when it comes to the example you just talked about, or I'm sorry, the situation you just talked about, when people are intentionally putting out incorrect information in hopes of going viral sometimes, or tricking up the mainstream media. Did anyone see the case where a guy dressed up like he was a ballot count? No, he was a postal worker, and he had some ballots, and he was saying it was a TikTok video. He wanted to be on TikTok. He wanted to go viral. He did. Perez Hilton was even ranting about it. He's like, you idiot. But that was also shared by high-ranking people in Congress. It's like, man. So we get it. People who are elected officials are not going to have the same journalistic standards that we have, but how do we avoid falling in those traps, like those attempts to go viral traps? Which brings me on to verifying. It can be tricky. How do you approach it? I know I can share some of my examples, but I would love to hear first. Heaven, you're teaching youngsters how to do this. So how do you approach ways to verify information so that we don't get confused and spread bad stuff?
Yeah, I should also clarify, we started teaching youth and young people between 2018 through the beginning of this year, and we've expanded to started with Gen Z, expanded to college age, first time voter age. And we also have a MediaWise for Seniors program. And we're hoping to expand even to Gen X and millennials, just so we can reach everyone. And with those different age groups, we have to take a different approach every time. But the skills, for the most part, are pretty much the same. And the way we like to approach it is that it's really not that hard to verify information online. It often doesn't really take very long either. I think the disconnect and the problem usually comes in that people just don't want to do it. Or like regular people really don't see the value or the problem with sharing something all the time that is possibly misinformation, or they don't understand the potential impact that they're having. And then another thing people don't understand is that misinformation and disinformation is intended to play on your emotions. It's intended to get you riled up. It's intended to get you to be in your group chats like, girl, did you see this? Or like, I need you to see this, or send this to somebody else. Like, that's the whole point, right? So we like, the basis of all of our teaching is using these questions developed by the Stanford History Education Group. They are a research organization out of Stanford University, and they developed this curriculum called the Civic Online Reasoning Curriculum. You can definitely check that out. It's free. It's still online. That was like the very, very beginning of MediaWise, one of the first things we released with them. But the 3 questions are: who is behind the information? What is the evidence? And what are other sources saying? And I think as journalists, we can all agree and attest that we, in some way or another, have pretty much always applied these 3 questions when we're doing a story or when we're verifying something. But when you kind of use that as your basis of verification in every aspect, you pretty much cover the bases and answer all the questions you need to have answered before you share something or publish something in whatever context you're talking about. Another thing we like to do is reverse image search. We like to teach people. It is so easy to just take an image off of the internet and make up a new narrative, and people will go for it, because why wouldn't you believe me if I tweeted it out, right? Why wouldn't you believe, Jesse or Nikki or Tremont or anyone else on this call? Why wouldn't you believe someone who's sharing something and you trust them, you have a relationship with them? But what happens a lot of times is stuff is taken out of context. And so what a reverse image search will do is it'll just show you where else on the internet something else will exist or has existed, or if this image existed 10 years ago and it's not from last week. Like,
does that work if it's a screenshot or something, like a copy, and not something that has all that metadata on it?
It does. It's not perfect, but we usually do Google or TinEye. There's also a tool that used to be called InVid, but it's called We Verify, and it can use keyframes from videos as well to verify those things. And these are all free tools. Again, images and videos can be manipulated, and the reverse image searches and the reverse video searches can be helpful to kind of indicate that as well at times, because you might be able to find the image without the manipulation, or you might find fact checks that have already debunked it. But that
Snopes,
is really, Snopes and Poynter, which is like right next door to MediaWise, and I'm drawing a blank, but there's so many that are also members of the IFCN, the International Fact Checking Network. But it's really a game changer. And I think, again, it takes that extra step or that extra skepticism to be like, let me take a pause really quick and decide if this is true. Let me do the extra legwork. We have to kind of encourage our peers and our friends and our family to really be thinking about these things, because I don't think everyone is aware that there are bad actors that make money and benefit from us sharing misinformation and sharing disinformation, and for having it spreading and getting out there and stuff. There's so many other tools and little tips, like checking the date on stuff, or reading beyond the headline, or just looking for additional context. Another really easy one that people just don't do sometimes is when clips go viral on Twitter, looking for the full video. That is like so basic, but it changes the game. Like, it really changes the game like you wouldn't believe. I know there was
one clip out of context can be a wow moment, but then when you hear the entire conversation, oh my gosh. You're like, so that's a hot take that we didn't even take correctly. Okay.
So many Trump ads that I kept seeing that were taking things Joe Biden was saying out of context. And it just made me really uncomfortable, because I'm like, if you really wanted to attack your opponent, there's a way to do it, and it doesn't have to be this way. And it's just really disappointing to me to see leaders and officials encouraging this kind of behavior from people.
And a reminder for everybody who sees us now or sees us later is like, we realize that public officials are not going to be held to the same journalistic standards. So frankly, some of them are just showing us their character when it comes to politics or life in general. I just saw like a story that was shared by a lawmaker. I feel it was somebody either out of Pennsylvania or Florida talking about ballots not being counted in Puerto Rico. Now, of course, they're trying to do this in relation to the presidential, election, but anyone who understands territories,
they can't vote.
They can't vote. So it's like these attempts to confuse and undermine the consumer, and why our position as journalists is so important, because we need them to rely on us, which means we need to be good at this job. Very, very good at this job.
Right.
Jesse, did you have any, tips of the trade? Like, how do you spot this stuff or decipher it? I mean, you're teaching a whole college class of people, and Lord knows we need them.
Yeah, I was going to say, Nikki, so y'all know I'm a college professor, and I've been teaching online now for 5 years. I started teaching online for 5 years ago. So I know that this stuff works better with visualizations. Okay. So I'm going to share some stuff with you. I actually do, like Nikki said, I actually do a whole class about understanding data and spotting fakes. So I'm not going to do the whole hour-long lecture, but just
thank you.
Just real short. I promise you, real short.
Go ahead. I should let you share your screen.
Oh, great.
So let me show you what I'm talking about here. Okay.
Did it let you do it?
Yep. Hold on.
Okay, great.
So you should see a bar graph.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So a lot of time, what happens when you see stuff on media is that on the internet is that you go a place and you grab something that looks like a real colorful, real good graphic, but what they don't tell you is how they've manipulated the data to make it look good. For example, the top graphics here you see here makes it look like that scientists is the preferred career for teens, and nobody wants to be an athlete. But what you don't realize when you look at the top graph is that they don't start from 0. They're starting from 40. So if you look at the bottom graph, where it actually starts from 0, it paints a completely different completely different picture and a different story. So just because you find something that looks good on the internet doesn't mean that you can use it. For example, here's a graph about student drink preference for children. Now, just looking at this graph, it might look like something that's really good that you should put on your webpage and retweet because, oh my God, children like water just as much as they like juice or soda. So anyone who has children can tell you that's completely fake.
They like sugar, lots of it.
But the second problem with this is you notice there are no numbers anywhere on this graph. So you don't know whether you're looking at the top of the graph, whether this is a study of 3 students. So it doesn't tell you anything. So when you see this type of information going around on the internet, you got to double check it. Now, this is something that actually made it on the Reuters newswire. The graph to the left, they were supposedly saying that women are breaking the glass ceiling and becoming CEOs. And if you look at the graph on the left, it looks like, look how fast that graph's going up. But if you look at the numbers on the graph, that's only 3.5% at the highest point. So if you actually put it in context, which they went back and redid it on the right, you see how the number isn't skyrocketing like the first graph wants you to believe. So you find this kind of stuff out there and it can really confuse you. But if you pay attention to what it's actually showing you, it makes sense and you know not to share it. Now, this was one that was really popular last year. Laura Trump, President Trump's daughter, tweeted this photo to show the support that Republicans had in the United States. And it got retweeted everywhere. But the problem with this graphic is land doesn't vote. People vote. So this is a map of counties.
Louder for the people in the back.
Right.
Land does not vote.
Land does not vote.
I don't care how you draw the map.
That's a
Land
quote.
does not
Land
vote.
does not vote.
People
So,
vote.
Looking at this, you would think there's huge Republican support in the United States. But when you change it to look at people, all of that land she claims that supports President Trump, there's nobody there.
Mm-hmm.
So you see how they can manipulate data to make you think that a narrative is what it is not. So this map actually shows the Republicans and Democrats and where they are in the United States. So all of that red out west, there's no, I guess the cows are voting because it's definitely not.
Did you see what they did on SNL?
Cows are voting.
They mocked the whole map thing.
Right.
And they showed, like, I took a screenshot of it. They mocked the map because they said, oh, this is like Trump country. And they're like, no, that's the COVID map, honey. No.
Right. Yeah.
like it's like,
go away.
you know, it's just one of those things where I have been stressing critical thinking, and people think I'm just being a nitpicky, like, teacher-ish person.
Right.
But it's like, if you're not paying attention to the data that you're looking at, and like that first one that showed no zero, it just was like, you know, then you're going to be so easily manipulated.
Right.
So what's this matter, you know?
So now let's talk a little bit about photos. Now you can find photos showing anything on the internet, but you have to be very careful about the photos that you decide to retweet. So if you looked at this photo I'm showing you right now, you would think that that guy is passing some information to a second guy leaning against a glass wall. But this photo is completely fake. Because if you look in the window at the reflection, the shadows are pointing in the wrong direction. But if somebody tweeted you and say, hey, Ron Klein is passing information to Russians, that photo would be retweeted everywhere. So as journalists, we have to take the extra step to understand whether things are fake. We use our common sense, to be honest with you. So this is the most famous example of this. President Trump had copies of Time magazine in his office and at his golf clubs showing that he had made the cover of Time magazine. Now, obviously, we know that this is fake. Because if you look at the script of the Time magazine on the left with Trump, you see how it's different it's a different shade of red. They paid millions of dollars to pick out these shades. Do you think they're going to come with a lighter version of it? The border doesn't fit. And actually, if you scan the barcode, the barcode will take you to a karaoke bar.
Oh my God.
So,
oh my gosh.
You can look at the two and tell that he faked the first one, or somebody who likes him faked the first one. But you really have to be careful because, to be honest with you, the second one is fake too. Mina Chang, who used to work at the State Department, faked a Time magazine cover and pasted her State Department photo on the cover to make people think that she had been in Time magazine.
But that used to be in style. Like, people used to do that all the time. Glamour,
yeah, on her
GQ.
resume.
Okay, yeah, you can't do it.
Oh my gosh. And somebody
just like Heaven said,
the only Asian woman on was Michelle Reed that I recall that was on.
How did, like Heaven said, how did people find out about it? They did a Google reverse image search and her State Department photo popped up with her in the exact same clothes as on the Time magazine cover. I promise you, Time has photographers. They're not going to use your State Department photo on the cover. So if you ever want to go through and see if you can figure out a difference between a fake photo and a real photo, you can go to that website on Adobe and take their Photoshop test. I will tell you, I took it. It's 25 photos. I was able to figure out 15 of them. I was able to figure 15, but 10 photos, I couldn't tell whether they were faked or Photoshopped.
Wow.
But a lot of times you can tell just by common sense, looking at shadows, looking at whether something actually looks real or not. And I'll stop there.
But that's actually very helpful. I'm going to go look for that to email folks out that test.
Yeah,
because
I'll send you a link.
You know, some of us are great at it. Some of us are not so great at it. I find myself in online so-called debates with folks when I'm trying to tell them that this is not accurate. I remember the scramble when there was the phantom doctors came out of nowhere. They had on lab coats. They were very cute. And they stood on the steps of the Supreme Court. Oh, this is a test. I mean, yeah. Remember that? The hydrochloroquine doctors, those people. This is what AP did to me. I, again, reminder, disclaimer, I worked overnight for about 3 years straight, and being able to be cognitive at 3 a.m. is a talent. So I literally rolled over, looked at this. I'm like, there's no way this is right. Like, I don't know what's going on here, but the fact I'm only seeing this on Breitbart of all places, considering your source, I was like, there's definitely something wrong with this. I put it in black and white, posted it up on Facebook, and went back to bed at like 6 a.m. because I was tired. Woke back up, and everybody's coming at me because I'm mad because some African doctor came out of nowhere because she's like of Liberian descent, I believe. And they're like, why are you questioning her? I'm like, because I ain't never heard of her. And the only place I'm seeing the story is on Breitbart. And like, well, maybe a different news source. I'm like, let me get this right. So I'm understanding that Black people that I know who have educations and everything are still like not aware of questionable news sources. Because it could be some fringe brand new website. I'm not anti that. I am anti Breitbart though. It took a long time for people to understand the Steve Bannon issues within the White House. And I was kind of nerve wracked by that because I'm kind of like with you, Heaven, like, we need to increase our outreach and education to our consumers because they are so easily manipulated by it looked good.
Right.
It made you feel good. Like,
absolutely.
Another thing that you kind of touched on is, I think, helping people understand expertise and relevant expertise and what that really means. Being a doctor. Okay, so my favorite show right now to binge on like YouTube is Paternity Court. And so they'll have like pediatricians or like general like physicians come in and talk about paternity issues, or a lot of the men will say they've experienced accidents that they're unable to have children. And I'm always thinking the fact checker and journalist in me is, okay, who is this general physician to discuss whether this injury is going to impact this person's ability to, just that's a really extreme example. But understanding that because somebody has letters behind their name doesn't mean they know what they're talking about with this very niche subject or this very specific topic. And I don't think people always get that. They don't know to get that,
On paper, when there's no photo accompanying it, I understand. But when you actually get to see a visual of said doctor, a good example would be the famed doctor that said that Trump was a supreme picture of health.
You mean the congressman-elect from Texas?
The one with the long, white, straggly hair. He looked like a hipster.
You're talking about the slub doctor from
that one. So it was...
The White House doctor said the same thing, and he got elected to Congress from Texas.
Jesus. Okay. Well, I ain't got nothing on this.
No justice. No justice. Yeah.
I'm just embarrassed by all of this.
Very fair. So, hi. This is Enid. I need to jump in on the doctor piece because I worked in public relations for a long time, and while quite honestly, I mean, it was really just skirting the margins. Doctors were often utilized as credible sources to kind of propagate, certain messages and things like that. They weren't necessary. I mean, so that particular piece of it, I mean, a lot of the misinformation is gone. What I like is that you guys are dealing with the more technical aspects because the information gets spread quicker and it's harder to control. I mean, there are a lot of things that were done that were slow rolled. Like another thing, I'm a lot older than you guys. I remember when there were emails, going out and people were filing lawsuits like so-and-so did this. And did you see this email chain here? And that kind of thing. So misinformation is not new, but what seems to be new is the speed and that it seems to go out. And I mean, the channels I'm glad you all have anchored the discussion to social media because that's so often a frequent source for us of entertainment and information now, and that's where it seems to be centralized. And what I really wanted you guys to address too was not just that, but in terms, not just the ethical issues of people doing it, because there are PR people that still put out like, I can just do it a little bit. I can skirt by Twitter or something like that. I mean, forget, the liar spreader in chief or whatever, I'm sorry, I can be political a little bit. But, there are people that still are doing that kind of thing in just the standard way, not just the bots, not just the Russians, but just people and their everyday, communication practices to others.
Well, one of the things I'll just add to what you're saying, Enid, is that, well, I will tell you first, I fought a losing battle at AP over our reliance on social media for news. I railed against it for years and years and years while I was social media editor and race and ethnicity editor.
You suck. Boo, boo. Like Jesse sucks. He made up these rules.
I railed against the use of social media, especially quoting politicians as having said on social media, because we all know for a fact that their spokespeople are writing that. They're not writing it.
Yes, absolutely.
Writing it.
Well, look at where we are stuck now. We have had a whole 4 years of this crap where we could only get communications via.
I promise you, I lost. I realized I lost 3 or 4 years ago. But I will tell you, what I tell my students now is that if you're going to quote somebody from Twitter, you got to track them down and call them, because you don't know if you're talking to somebody in Russia. You don't know if the woman you think you're talking to is a fan. So if you're not going to, in my class, you're not going to hang your reputation on somebody, something. You don't even know if it's a person. It could be a bot. You're not going to hang your reputation on something you see on the internet in my class. If you either have to find a person and talk to them by phone and find out that they're in charge of that Twitter account, or you can't use it. And I think
learn to verify today.
So, I mean,
all right.
You would be surprised at how often I have students who want to quote a Twitter stream. And I'm like, so are you sure this person is a man? Is this person a woman? Are they non-binary? You don't know. All you know is that they have a Twitter account. Did you check to see how long ago that Twitter account started? Sorry?
I said, not you wanting the students to work hard.
Oh, yes, apparently.
No, I mean, but Heaven will back me up on this.
I'll back you up on this. This is my life.
No, you can check for bots by just seeing how often the person tweets. Yeah. Because if a bot put out 20,000 tweets in 1 month and only existed for a month, that's probably a bot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all it takes is a little research to keep from looking like a fool in public because of the internet.
I want to know who trained the bots to respond back whenever I start playing them about Russia. Because I love doing that, by the way. Like the minute I see one that I'm like, they'll like say, well, they'll come troll you, right? Because that's what bots do. They troll. And I'm like, oh, hi, Russia. And I'll even put like the Russian flag and everything. And they're like, I'm not a bot. Like,
and they start talking real bot-like.
Yes, I'm like, but you sound like a bot though. like you're doing so bot things. You seem like you must be like, who put the automatic response in there? I'm not a bot.
So I will tell you, I used to use this when I would talk to white Americans who said that they are really down with black people. So now I use it on Twitter for bots that pretend to be black. I say, can you tell me the host of Soul Train?
And that is actually good.
That's good.
That's
I guarantee you a bot will not know the answer to that. But there are very few black people who've never heard of Don Cornelius. Yeah. Some of us. I mean, I'll accept Shamir Moore. I mean, he was there at the end.
That could be a new thread. That could be a new thread. Like how to detect a bot. Like what black sayings to detect a bot. Because like, like Frankie really Beverly cool. And what? Like, they can't answer.
Oh, yeah.
Hey.
We were talking earlier before this started about the white Florida official who was pretending to be a gay black man online.
That was wild.
And I mean,
oh my goodness. That one.
They even dug up some black dude to act like that was him too. I saw this I'm like laughing at it because I'm like, okay, so did y'all pay this dude to come out like this?
So that wasn't really the black guy, even though he admitted it?
I ain't buying it, man. I ain't buying it.
Because the Twitter went further.
The bald head dude, right?
Yeah, Twitter went further. It dug up pictures of him and Patty, and I think they're related. Patty LaBelle.
Yeah, that's Patty LaBelle's adoptive son or something.
Yeah.
I'm like, is he stressed for money? Patty got money now. What's going on? Like, I'm confused. What's going on?
You had to.
This whole story is crazy.
It is. Well, I had to tell you guys one thing that really got me, and it spoke to me because I, was thinking this is something in addition to journalists and the respect for this, but I'm glad we're on this topic is because one of the reasons I'm so interested is I have family members, including a brother. My brother went on YouTube and found some guy he followed for months called Big Brother Black Man.
Oh God, that sounds scary.
And I mean, honestly, I went to the video. He said, well, he's saying this. And the guy's in a tin can. And I swear, finally, I got a video and was able to screenshot it from my brother and say, this is a white man in blackface. I mean, honestly, you've been for months. This guy has had like 21. He only had 21,000. Well, that's still a lot. 21,000 people following him. But there are people that, like you said, people are easily misled. We're journalists and we're people in this industry sector and we know to be on the lookout. But I guess what I wanted to ask you guys is what simple things can you give to communities, the people that you have to work with or talk to so that they'll be on the lookout or they'll know something's fake?
I'm always consider your source. I'm not saying you have to like the same news orgs that I like, but if you at least find a consistent one that you feel like you trust and just kind of run it by a journalism friend. They used to have a really good chart that showed the leanings of the different news organizations, but it keeps shifting. Yeah. And if you can kind of like find something that remotely falls in that middle sweet spot area, just stick to those. It's really when they go off and it's like somebody shared something from a news organization that you've never heard of. And they're like, this is fact. And like, but you've never heard of this ever before. Like, why are you trusting it right now?
Right. That and no one else is talking about it. I feel like that's a red flag. It's like, that's part of our questions. Like, what are other sources saying? If there's a major news event or something groundbreaking or like, everybody would be talking about this. So it should be telling you that only Auntie Susie in Kentucky on Facebook is sharing it from this blog you've never heard of before. That should be telling to you. Also, I think people should just approach things with a general sense of skepticism. Just generally just be skeptical. Like on the internet, I remember our parents used to tell kids like, you can't go meeting people from online and you can't go, it should be the same. You cannot trust people. You just can't. Because everybody has an agenda these days or a motivation or ulterior motives or something. You really just have to take it with a grain of salt and verify yourself.
Enid, that's a tough one, honestly, because think about it. We've been 4 years of people being told that we're bad, journalists are bad, that we're not, that we're the enemy of the people type of thing. So even if we were to give them a toolkit, something simple to verify, would they listen?
Right. And I will tell you that
I agree there.
The opinion of we have to write off some folks because there are some folks who you're never going to convince them that you are reporting the truth and the sources that they are following, the YouTube channel or the Parler account, that they're just being manipulated by those accounts. They're not going to believe them. So just like what Heaven is doing, I'm hoping to get them at the college level, keep working at the high school level. I'm hoping to get them at the college level and teach them some basic media literacy, where we used to fight clickbait. Now we're fighting accounts. I remember giving a lecture in Arkansas, at the University of Arkansas in 2015, trying to explain to people that if you see a link on Facebook or Twitter and it says, click here to find out what blah, blah, blah said. I'm like, do you realize that they give news away for a reason? That any real news organization will tell you the news in the headline. They're not going to make you click on anything to go find the news. So we have to figure out how to get the next generation, the 60, 70, 80-year-olds, we've lost them and they're not coming back. No, there's nothing you
Poynter is trying to grab them. They're trying.
They're gone. They're gone, Nikki. You're not bringing them back. You're not bringing them back at all, ever.
They're going to send you a chain email or something.
So when Thanksgiving comes, you're not going to convince your uncle that Joe Biden's really president. Just leave him alone. Just let him drink his brown liquor and fall asleep in the chair, because you're not going to convince him of anything. And y'all laughing, but
it's true.
It's true.
A bunch of black men
laughing to keep them crying.
Voted for Trump this time.
Laughing to keep them crying.
At Thanksgiving, talking about how what's his name? How Kanye was right, and how
and Ice Cube was right, and he had a plan for all this.
Whatever his name was.
And Kanye got 65,000 votes.
That was nuts.
That's people playing around with their right to vote. They're just playing around like it's a joke.
Right. So
that's true.
We do need to make an effort for media literacy for high schoolers, for college age, and for those who are just getting out of college. People who are still willing to listen at this point. That will solve half the problem right there. I'm
glad that as an organization, I just love being a part of BABJ. And no judgment on, where I live or anything. But having said that, I'm glad the focal point is on journalists. But I think that in some way, I would love to see this go and be a public-facing event, because I will say, Nikki, I think maybe being joined with another credible source that could be a touchstone, like a church or something like that, to kind of explore that as a topic, with BABJ being at the realm of it. And I mean, because this discussion is so fruitful. I mean, it's the kind of thing where I really want to just send it to my brother, all his friends. Y'all need to listen to this right here.
Oh,
well, I will package it up, so you can send it once I clean it up and everything. But
because
he may not watch it. It's not big black. Big brother black man.
He'll watch it. He'll watch it. I mean, the thing is, some of his friends may not, watch it. That's the problem.
I feel like our profession has really taken a knock for the last administration, last 4 years, and it doesn't help that even before that, the smugness of our profession, the level of self-importance. A lot of folks are not really feeling all of us, okay? So it's kind of, I'm here for the outreach. If somebody really wanted to have this for their congregation or their civic group, it seems like something that I could easily get members to participate in. I just grab Jesse and beg him to do it again. But it hurts, because it's like I be fighting a real fight every day. Right. Y'all saw my post about Van Jones. I was like,
I did.
A reminder, stop blaming us for what Van Jones did or didn't do. That's not us. We get banged up for other stuff. You don't need to lock them in with us. And realizing that, let's be honest, the reason there's the confusion as to, well, isn't Van Jones a journalist because he's sitting at the desk? My eyes are trained to tell me that if I see somebody sitting on an anchor desk on a 24-hour news network, then they must be an anchor, right? No. And breaking that down, I had to tone police myself to break that down for people who were caping hard for Van Jones just because he started crying on TV. And it's like, he's emotional. He's a black man who's emotional. I'm going to let y'all have that moment and not bring up his interesting dealings over the past 4 years.
Right.
I'm gonna let y'all have that, and y'all can feel him if you want. But just a reminder, we got some photos here that are actually real photos that show him canoodling all with this administration.
Canoodling.
Yep.
Canoodling. That's my word for today. Canoodling. So it's just we have so much information to share, and we're missing our audience many times. So, of course, our meeting today was about, us, the professional, how to be better at fact checking and deciphering when to have an eyebrow raised. But you're right. Our outreach needs to be.
Here's the thing, though, Nikki. Our problem is that we keep preaching to the choir. I mean, even if we had this at one of our churches, most of our people already aren't doing this type of stuff. And they already, whether because they think it leans left, they're already watching and listening to credible news sources. So we're not fighting our grandmothers. We're not fighting our grandfathers. It's others that, first of all, that will not allow us to have this access to their churches.
Yeah.
So
the churches, I take a litmus test with my mom.
Alfred Street Baptist Church.
Oh, they're too educated. No, they got this.
I go to Alfred Street now.
Yeah, that's the one that donates to Howard every 5 seconds. They good. No. No, I have, as Jesse knows, my family is down in the Bible Belt, like straight hardcore Arkansas, right? And for the last 5-6 years, that's always been my like litmus test. Like, so how was church today?
Right.
What y'all talking about? Like, how they feel about the situation? I'm trying to get a pulse for where we are right now in this country. And I don't want to assume that just because, we're going to have a changing of the guard, that everything's going to be okay. So I want to know, what are they doing on Sunday morning down in the Bible Belt and down in areas that we were already a little sketchy about? And you couple that with this weekend's upcoming loveliness in DC, because there's going to be a whole million MAGA march. I don't know why, but here we are. So it does pay for us to be paying attention to folks that are outside of our circle.
I agree with you, but I will tell you, Nikki, that I had a perverse pleasure in deleting a lot of people and muting a lot of people on my Twitter feed since Tuesday.
Oh, wow.
Because since I'm no longer a daily practicing journalist,
he said, I ain't gotta do this no more.
He said, I'm not
gonna do this no more
anymore. So you don't know how much more pleasant it has been on Twitter and on Facebook for me in the last week as I started muting people who I don't need to hear from anymore.
I have told y'all this before.
Absolutely.
I am always blown away with all the places that I have lived. We're talking Florida, Tennessee, like Appalachia, Tennessee, and Western New York, as well as Philadelphia. And the worst behaved, the most extreme right wing, Western New York.
Oh, upstate New
Really?
York.
Oh, they are the worst. They are the worst. Like,
I have lived in South Carolina, Mississippi, Georgia, and DC, and the worst was in Albany, upstate New York.
Like when you're talking about like information being shared, because I still keep people from all these different markets in my little news feeds, and everything from Kamala and the birther stuff that was going on with Senator Harris, that was rampant. Like I would just like say, let's just play this game. Where does this come from? Click on it. Tonawanda. I'm like, yep, New York. Like, like and like Lackawanna, Tonawanda, like all the South towns, like Orchard Park. I'm like, I cannot make this up. I lived where they had a Klan rally the week after Obama got like in Tennessee, like Tennessee, Virginia, where they meet. That's where I expected all this strong birther. They're not real Black people, not real African American. I expected all that to come from them. No, it always comes from Western New York every damn time.
Wow.
Because let's be straight, the birther stuff, that was very Obama-esque. We saw that. And when I saw white people engaging in is this person Black? I'm like, okay, I'm confused.
Like, why do you care, first of all?
Why
is it?
Like, how did we get here? And then, she's not really African American. I mean, she's Jamaican. She was born here.
Oh, we just had a long discussion of that in my culture reporting class at GW.
How'd that go?
We went over the headlines for the day after the election and counted the number of times they described Kamala Harris as a Black woman.
Mm-hmm. Really?
Oh, wow.
Oh, they tried to erase it that fast, right? I did check. By the way, I did check USA Today on a tweet, and they did fix it. And it wasn't just me. Yeah, they did fix it. It wasn't just me. Other people were like, nah, what y'all not gonna do is erase that lovely line. We got the transcript, we got the audio, we got the video. She said, Black women, pause. Then she went and listed everybody else. So you can't just lump this all together and be like, oh, this is a direct quote. That's paraphrasing. You're going to say this is a quote. Get my little AP hat on. You lying. Fix it. Fix it now. So
I will tell you, one of the articles I'm working on right now is a primer for white journalists to understand the Divine Nine when they start writing about Kamala Harris.
What was that woman's name? Chelsea? Was it Chelsea?
Coming.
They're gonna say she rushed Alpha Kappa Alpha.
Exactly.
She put in a bid.
Oh my God.
She rushed. She put in a bid. What else we got? With the Tridel involved in this, like this is going to be fun.
Did you hear the newscaster who says she was a member of ACA sorority?
Oh, I didn't mess with that.
Oh no.
Okay, I have used that phrase before. I'm sorry, y'all. Not in my reporting ever, but I have said ACA, or but I would not encourage anyone else to do that.
Yeah, I would not.
I would not either.
But Nikki, you're a Delta, right?
I am. And
yeah, because my daughter's a Delta. I remember when I'm GDI, but I have besties that are Deltas or
it's
AKs.
Me by me, it's fine. It's just it's like, remember the reporter who was not so swift and said that people started screeching in the auditorium?
The Washington Post.
Oh my God.
The Washington Post reporter who was covering what before politics? The Nationals.
Oh.
Yeah. So some sports reporter got a grand opportunity to do politics, and she crashed and burned in her tweets, and it was painful. They fried and roasted the crap out of Sister Girl, and she deserved it.
They did.
She deserved it.
Yes. Been trying to break in here for the last 6 minutes.
Oh no. I just got a question, because like y'all talked about like the group of people or the section of people that don't necessarily of us, not of any other body, any other people, but I would say of us. You do have like this alt-right side of Black people. I call them but they always try to bring up some type of fake article to kind of prove their point. And most of the time, you might even break everything down. Like there was one person, and I'm just giving you a personal anecdote. There was one person I broke down how the electoral college worked, and then he literally didn't listen to me and then posted something up about something fake. How do you deal with those people that continuously spew out fake information as if it is real, and then continue to say the things that they say, which is completely lies, absolutely real? Because there are people within our community that do things like this.
I no longer argue with people that Harriet Tubman would have shot.
Oh. Wow. Wow.
I don't.
Wow. You know what? That's going on. Listen, I gotta take that one.
I don't do it anymore.
You know what? Oh my God.
I'm not doing it.
I can't say
That gotta go on
I'm not doing this anymore with you all. I'm not.
I might say from a trusted source.
You contribute to me.
I'm gonna turn that into a poster.
I am not arguing with people. Like, think about it. If you gave them an explanation, Vance, you told them, hey, this is how it works. You gave them facts. Like, you gave them the information. If they choose not to take it in,
right,
you've done your due diligence. I'm sorry. At this point, let them.
Vance, I will tell you that I'm a Q, and that on our private message boards, we have some of these Hotep brothers.
Oh my God. Yes, you do.
Yes, you do.
Who want to
I already know who they are. Some of them are.
How the United States really works and how we don't really understand politics. And I had one even to come at me about slavery in the White House and how it really worked. And
did he not know you wrote a book on it?
The damn book.
Like you wrote the damn book.
This is my first time.
Sir.
And so Vance, what I finally said to him was, you know what? If you want to do the research, after you've spent 10 years studying this, after you've covered politics for 30 years, then we can continue this conversation. Until then, I'm going to ignore you, and I'm going to tell everyone who knows me to ignore you, because I've done the work and you haven't.
That's a hard flex, man.
It is.
But
Let's go end the book.
Everybody in my fraternity at least went to college. They might not have graduated. But
You know what? You know what? That was unnecessary.
No, but it's true.
That was
unnecessary.
Everybody at least went to college. So you at least had freshman 101 classes.
Yeah.
So you know how to think.
For you pledged.
That's
So
real.
If I explain to you that I spent 10 years studying slavery at the White House, and I had spent 30 years covering politics, and I have covered 5 presidential elections, and you think the information you found on the internet trumps me? I ain't got nothing else to say to you.
Yeah.
I love that. Nikki, I'm serious. You buy,
but it still ain't better than what
poster. Nikki's
like,
the winner is still champ.
I am not arguing with them at this point. Like I think Heaven mentioned it earlier. Are the experts talking about this?
That's what I'm saying.
Is there another source that can concur with this point of view you're talking about, or this so-called fact you're talking about? And when you can't, it's okay. You don't have to die on this hill today.
You don't, and you don't have to expel your energy. Like it's not worth it. Like if someone has demonstrated to you clearly they're unwilling to change their behavior, what are you gonna do? You know what I mean? Like what does that do for your day? It just is gonna stress you out. And it's enough to be stressed out about. So
yeah,
really
because
is.
I continually
dumb stuff on your page.
Exactly. If you can't get away from them, that's what really bothers me about the hoteps on our internal page is that I'm not leaving our page.
So you're gonna have to just deal with brother Almighty on this one.
Yeah, big brother black man.
Yeah.
At some point, you get to the point where you just can't engage. And I'm at the point where I'm saying, if y'all want to believe that, go ahead. I can't stop you, and I'm no longer going to put in the energy into explaining to you how presidential elections work. I've said it once. I'm not going to say it again every time he posts that the Florida legislature is going to overturn the electorals and send them for Trump.
Like, that's not how it works.
I'm like, it's not how they don't get a deal.
Like,
they already won the state. What's the article for it?
Because if I write it and I repeat it, it must be true. No, it just means that you're repeating something that's really wrong.
But that does work. Trump has proved that if you want people to believe it, just say it long enough.
Just keep saying
that's part of the art of the deal. Book.
But
like he mentions that, or whoever wrote the book
now is that Twitter and Facebook have figured that out, and they've stopped them from saying it.
I don't know how well I know how well it worked, but I hate the fact that it was so effective. The campaign to devalue and to like take the credibility away from journalists.
Right.
And that really is hard because I'm finding myself in conversations with people that I'm like, you realize I'm an authority on this, right? I'm not trying to just spit crap here. Do I have to put the degree up on the darn, backdrop on my Facebook page, especially when it's something about Black people. And I'm sitting here like trying to, I get it. I get excited when Black people want to learn more about our history and a Pan-African diaspora. But I have, the conversations I have gotten into recently, I'm just like, where are you getting this? Like, just where? And it's always a person. It's not a book. It's not a course. It's a person. And I'm like, well, who's the photep this time? It just really breaks my heart. Because I'm like, so.
It's Dr. Umar Johnson.
It's always Dr. Umar Johnson and his very successful school that we have yet to see. That one. Yeah. That one. I'm like, I have an entire career that has always had a foot in the Black press. On top of that, I got a whole ass degree that says I have African American studies down pat. But y'all want to sit here and argue with me about who's Black. I'm like, wow.
Right. And using stuff that we wrote. Using their facts that we wrote.
Oh my God. Thank you.
Oh my God.
What the media won't tell you. Links to the story that I probably wrote.
Right. Exactly.
Which is why this is such a blessing that you all are taking the next generation and giving them the confidence and the tools that they need to, because, as somebody who, I'm in PR, but I will be honest, I'm more directional in my approach to things, some of this baloney BS, right, BS, but you guys are teaching them because they need that. I mean, I do this, and now I know a couple other people that do this, that they just check in with their journalism or reporter friends. How you doing? How's it going? Just to see how, because it is a heavy load. I agree with you, Nikki, that this man has propagated this misinformation to such a degree. But I just have confidence because I've seen it. Like I keep telling you guys, I'm older. Like when I was in my 20s, there was some guy used to be on TV and he had all these millions of followers. And all of a sudden he literally, I can't even remember his name. I told my mother we're going to figure out his name.
Cults?
But, yeah, well, no, he wasn't a cult guy. I mean, although we've seen some of them fall too, like the guy, Jim, what's his name? Yeah.
Jim Jones?
Jim Jones.
Not Jim Jones, the guy that was on the Jimmy Swaggart.
Jimmy Swaggart.
Okay, that's a
Jimmy Swaggart, but there was another guy that was out when I was in my 20s. I hate to say, when I was your age, I hate to bring that up, but it's true. This guy, he was racist. He had a TV show. It was one of the most popular TV shows. And the next thing you know, he was gone. He was in the tank. I'm sorry, poor thing. God bless him.
Yeah.
But he ended up, so I am still call me optimistic. Maybe that's why I needed to switch to PR from journalism. But I'm just more optimistic that somehow, because that the work, I very often have said this to journalists that, just save the democracy. It's not just me and Lynn Adrian saying it. I'm glad, but it's true, because we would not have a democracy if it weren't for journalism in this country. Just saying.
No, I don't know if we're really in a good spot. Like, I think doing the Lord's work and trying to educate the best you can about sources and about verifying is good. But we're also at a time when anyone with a phone has a YouTube channel. Yeah. Anyone can make their own content, and content is king right now. So I get a little nervous because folks get so much more enamored with, I was watching this video versus was it accurate though? Was it right? I'm a little nervous because think about who are their trusted sources, and do their trusted sources, are they worthy of their trust? Real talk. Like, just because you like somebody's videos, does that mean that they're preaching accuracy?
Right.
Chances are no. Dr. Umar Johnson has a lot of followers.
First of all, he's not a doctor. I shouldn't even.
Not a doctor.
Well, he put the words in front of his name, so.
Man, you put a doctor behind it so they can seem more intelligent. But a hotep is a hotep is a hotep. But
it could be argued that they are speaking truth to power, and y'all are working with the mainstream media, and you're not telling them the truth. And these guys are telling them the truth that's going to set us all free and liberate us.
That's true. But when I show the truth in your face, which is how I usually approach young people like myself, and I actually show them this is actually what you're talking about right here, then they can't really say anything. But I do like the fact of what you said, how like YouTubers are starting to kind of do that same thing, because that's actually what I'm seeing now. And it's starting to come to a point where sure, these videos are entertaining. Sure, this person might have dug into a little research here and there, but have this person really took the time to find out what have maybe happened behind this company or behind this artist?
No, they didn't have to. That wasn't part of their talking points for their little video.
No, exactly.
That wasn't it.
It's not it at all.
It's I've been a consultant on a couple podcasts quietly, and I just listen for quality control. And every once in a while something is glaring and wrong, and I'm just like, okay, I just send it a DM like, so that's not right. I don't know what you want to do with this information, but I was listening to your report, and it was about it was something about the 3 freedom riders that were killed in Philadelphia, Mississippi.
Right.
And they tried to make a correlation to something that happened today or recently, and they identified the location as, I think, Tupelo or Jackson. I was like, that's not really.
Yeah, that's not right.
Not right. No.
So
I'm like, things like that. People want to play journalists until, real talk. Did you check everything? Yes. And I've been very surprised and also impressed with a lot of the digital content out there. I love podcasts. I love YouTubers, but I scrutinize because I come from the profession where you can't get none of this wrong. If you talk less, fine. Make sure it's still accurate. Yep. I'd rather you talk less and it be accurate than you talk more, embellish, and you're killing your credibility every time you mess up something.
So that's actually a good point. I don't mean to cut anybody else off, but that's something that like with the podcast that me and my friend do, and we make sure that if we say something that might resolve into history, we're like, correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, we'll even tell the viewers, check us, let us know. But for you to just say that this is the truth and this is that, and you don't even use, like, you might have sources, but your sources aren't really clear, that's unfactual. That's pretty much a lie. And
but that's where we are for entertainment.
Of that, and that can affect it.
Like, that's why I was coming off Enid's comment about faith in the next generation. I'm a little nervous because I know where they're getting their content from. And, when people are using TikTok for tutorials these days, okay, great tool. But what happens when you use TikTok and make a video where you are dressed up like a postal worker and ripping up ballots, and it was all for a viral moment?
Right.
So that, teaching the ability to decipher what is accurate, what is real. Shucks, what is real? Like, what is made for entertainment? What's real? I feel like going forward, especially after the 4 years we just saw in the White House, it's going to be a strong task. I might go back in the classroom just because I'm really a little confused and uneasy about what these kids are getting.
Right. Well, let me just add in here, Nikki, is that I do a lot. I don't tweet that much anymore because I don't want to have the conversations with the hoteps and the no-teps online. I don't even want to have the conversation. But when it comes, every holiday, just like on Veterans Day, I'm going to post something that has to do with history.
Yeah.
So on Veterans Day yesterday, I put together a whole post to say that for people who are celebrating Veterans Day, I want you all to remember all those Black veterans from World War I y'all lynched in the South. They didn't even get a happy Veterans Day. They got lynched. But if you
there you go with the facts again.
But here's the thing. If you just say something like that, even though it's from a factual spot, you're gonna have somebody say, well, can you prove it? How do we know that happened? So before I even posted it, I went on newspapers.com and downloaded the newspapers that showed the list of the Black men, the Black soldiers that they lynched. So, but I will tell, and then I went to the Library of Congress. I mean, all of this just for a tweet. I went to the Library of Congress and found a photo of a Black soldier being lynched. Just so to be sure, when someone says that didn't happen, I can say, well, you can argue with the Arkansas Democrat Gazette from 1932, not with me, because they have a photo.
Yeah.
But Twitter would not allow the photo because now they're cracking down on what they call disturbing content.
Yep.
Now they're cracking down.
You're trying to be thorough.
Now.
Actually, nah, but like.
Hello, QAnon. Yeah, thank you, Twitter.
Like, that's exactly how you fact check your stuff. You go take the time to research your stuff before you put the tweet out, not after when it's already posted.
Or when you get the backlash, or when people are in your mentions blowing you up.
Right. Yeah. You do the work, and then you don't have to worry about somebody coming after you because you have the receipts.
And keep in mind, for a journalist, that's your job. Like, that is your whole job. Facts. That's all we do is facts. So this should be for us more like, there's a quickness to want to like repost something. And then there's also but I'm a journalist though. So pause. Right. Let me make sure that this is accurate. Lighthearted so that we can kind of wrap it up. I retweeted, not retweeted. I downloaded it because I wanted to get this video up there and I couldn't find it on Twitter anywhere, but I saw it on Instagram. It was two men who were doing the ballroom scene and they were doing Lovecraft Country, Topsy and Bopsy. And they did that. Like, they did a great job on that. My whole thing was like, okay, so where did it come from? Like, I couldn't let it go. I had to like figure out where did it come from, who was in this video. And before I go posting it and I'm like, ooh, look at what I found. Like, I wanted to attribute it to whoever did this. And I did. And when I found like the one dancer, he's a little bit more mature in age. So I see why he probably didn't think maybe I should post this on Twitter. But whoever posted it on Instagram for him did him a service, because that was a really well done routine. For me, it was just like, okay, let me give credit to the artist that's doing this. But how many times have we seen people just say, "Oh, I saw this," posted it.
Yep.
Right.
And then like what it comes out to be, like, it could have been some weird, you know, they were dressed up as pickaninnies. So it could have been something else totally different. And Lord knows what the context could have been. So I wanted to know the context of this. I did see mask, so that did indicate that it was something recent. But I just keep thinking about, like, for all the, you know, the late nights and stuff that I had at work with AP, my skills to pull stuff out is scary.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
being able to do that when I am half asleep is amazing. And I see the deficit that happens in our industry, because at this point in my career, it kind of went faster than I expected. But now I'm in like running for like these management style positions all the time. And I'm looking at, well, then who would I be supervising?
Right.
And when you see that lacking, like they haven't cut their teeth yet on how to verify information, yeah, it's scary.
Wow.
It's scary. I want to wrap us up because I've kept y'all longer than I expected to, but I really do appreciate your expertise. I would love to get any possible words of encouragement or advice from our two panelists for anyone who is here or watching this later on. Heaven, if you don't mind, you can go first.
I'd say, like I said before, always be skeptical. And like we were telling Vance earlier as well, you know, it is not worth your sanity to try to convince people who already have their minds made up. We can just continue doing the work and fighting the fight and hoping to make the world better, but not at the expense of ourselves. And so I encourage everyone to be informed, try to inform others, but protect your own space and sanity.
That's beautiful. And Dr. Jesse J. Holland. You had to throw the doctor up there for y'all.
Thank you. Believe nothing when it comes to the internet. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. Just real quick, I worked with Jeffrey Toobin years ago at the Supreme Court. When they said he was fired, I did not retweet it until Jeffrey Toobin said he had been fired. Believe nothing. Know your sources. That's the only way to survive in this age of the internet.
All righty. I'd like to thank everybody who showed up today, as well as anyone who tunes in later on to take part and you know, get this information, because it's very, very vital, and it's going to be mostly important because we have a lot to counter. The last 4 years have been very busy with questionable misinformation and disinformation campaigns. I would also like to invite anyone who's interested. In 2 weeks, there's going to be a group regional conference for NABJ, and it'll be an opportunity. They have 4 different, I believe, program paths that you can do for the entire day as a whole Saturday. So you're all welcome. I think the cost for admission is like about $25, so it's really affordable and informative at the same time. On behalf of the Baltimore Association of Black Journalists, I thank you all for being here today. And also check us out at BABJMD.com. Appreciate it.